I found the pregnancy test in the trash can in our master bathroom, tucked under a bunch of balled-up tissues and an empty shampoo bottle, like someone was trying to bury it but did not try that hard. 2 solid pink lines stared up at me, and my whole body went cold as I realized that test sure as hell was not mine. And my wife, Sarah, had not said a single word to me about being pregnant. We were not trying to have a baby, and actually she had been avoiding getting close to me for months, always talking about headaches, late nights at the office, and how she needed space. So seeing that test felt like someone kicked the floor out from under me. I just stood there in that bathroom, holding the stick over the trash, heart pounding so hard it felt like it was in my throat, trying to make sense of how Sarah, who normally plans everything down to the minute, had slipped up like this. She was the kind of woman who double-checks restaurant reservations and tracks her work projects on 3 different apps. So if that test was in our trash, it was either pure arrogance or she thought I was too dumb and distracted to notice. Instead of storming out to confront her, I took a slow breath, slid the test back into the can, covered it all back up with the same tissues, and walked out like nothing had happened, even though inside I felt like my life had just cracked down the middle. I sat at the kitchen table pretending to scroll through my phone, my thumb barely moving, listening for her footsteps upstairs while my thoughts bounced around like a pinball machine. When she finally came down, hair still damp from the shower, she did not even look at me, just poured herself a mug of coffee and started scrolling through Instagram like she was not hiding the biggest secret of our marriage right upstairs. I swallowed down the urge to call her out and instead forced a smile and said, "You look like you slept pretty good. You got a long day at work today?" in the most casual tone I could manage. She gave me a quick glance, just a flash of her blue eyes, then shrugged and said, "Same old thing. Meetings, deadlines, you know how it is." Like we were talking about the weather and not a mystery pregnancy. The way the lie rolled off her tongue made my stomach twist, because it was so smooth, like she had been practicing this kind of thing for a while, not just starting now. Right then, I decided I would not be the clueless husband she clearly took me for. So I played along, acting normal, while inside I was already planning how to catch her with proof she could never spin. That night, I lay there in bed beside her, listening to Sarah's steady breathing while I stared at the ceiling, wide awake and replaying everything in my head. I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation, like maybe the test belonged to somebody else, but logic kept reminding me that nobody else used our bathroom, and Sarah had been dodging me like I was contagious. By morning, I had made up my mind to stop ignoring the signs and start watching her closely, not like a crazy person, but like a man fighting for the truth about his own life. At breakfast, she kissed me on the cheek and it felt fake, like a greeting card glued over a crime scene, while she scrolled her phone with one hand and guarded it with the other like it was gold. Sarah usually left her phone on the counter or coffee table, but that day she took it everywhere, even into the bathroom, staying in there 15 or 20 minutes at a time. And when she came out for the 3rd time, I said, "Everything okay? You've been in there a lot lately." And she froze for just half a second before forcing a little laugh and saying, "Yeah, just some stomach issues. Probably that sushi we had the other night," even though I knew we had not eaten sushi in weeks. Later that day, when she left for work, I told myself going through our trash did not make me crazy. It just made me a man who wanted answers in his own house. I dug through every bag until I found a crumpled receipt from a fancy boutique in the next town over, dated 2 days earlier, listing luxury candles, silk lingerie, and a bottle of men's cologne I had never seen or smelled in our home. Holding that receipt, my chest got tight, because it painted a pretty clear picture. She was buying romantic things, just not for me, and whoever that cologne was for was not some secret Christmas gift. That night on the couch, we watched some mindless reality show, and I pretended to barely care while my brain burned a hole through that receipt sitting in my pocket. I waited until a commercial, then said as casually as I could, "So, who was the cologne for?" and pulled out the receipt, watching her head snap toward me, her face flashing panic before she pasted on a smile. She laughed and said, "Oh, that is for my boss. Our team chipped in for his birthday." And she delivered it so quickly and smoothly that a weaker man might have believed her. But all it did for me was confirm she had a whole second life rehearsed. The next morning, after she drove off in her spotless white sport utility vehicle with her travel mug and work bag, I decided to go one step further and follow her. I hung back a few car lengths, expecting her to head straight downtown to her office, but instead she made an unexpected turn and pulled into a little café on the edge of town where we had never once gone together. She stepped out of the car wearing a fitted dress and heels that looked more like date night than client meeting, and a few minutes later a tall guy in business casual walked in, headed straight to her table, and sat close like they had done this 100 times. Sitting in my truck down the street, I watched them lean in, laugh, and share a pastry. Her face lit up in a way I had not seen in months, and it felt like getting punched in the gut. Instead of charging in there and making a scene, I pulled out my phone and took photos, hands shaking as I zoomed in on the way he brushed a strand of hair from her face and kissed her cheek outside afterward while she smiled up to him like he hung the moon. Driving home afterward, my chest burned, but underneath the hurt was a cold focus, because now this was not just suspicion, this was evidence, and I knew I needed more if I wanted this to end with real consequences. Over the next couple of days, I stopped pretending marriages fix themselves and started digging where I knew she would never expect me to look: her laptop. Sarah used the same lazy passwords for everything, and within minutes I was in her email and calendar, heart pounding as I scrolled through messages from a man named Luke Reynolds, full of inside jokes, coffee meetings, and calendar entries that made my blood run cold. One event in particular stood out. Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Dr. Carlson, prenatal checkup, which told me two things at once. The baby was real, and she was managing that pregnancy with Luke behind my back. By the time Friday rolled around, my plan was simple: catch them at that appointment and make sure there was no way either of them could ever pretend they were innocent. I parked across from the clinic listed in her calendar and watched her white sport utility vehicle pull in, followed a minute later by Luke climbing out of his car with a coffee in hand like he was just heading into a happy parent appointment. They hugged, walked in together, and I slipped through a side door propped open for deliveries, quietly moving down the hallway until I saw them sitting side by side in an exam room, her hand on her stomach, him nodding along while the doctor talked about the baby like they were the proudest couple in the world. I recorded everything on my phone, every smile and touch, then left before they saw me, because I knew the real showdown needed to happen where they could not just walk away. The next night, Sarah suggested we go to a fancy Italian place downtown, and I agreed, letting her dress up in a deep red dress and heels while she played the part of a loving wife on date night. Halfway through dinner, I set my fork down, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "You seem distracted lately. Must be hard, all those late nights at the office and prenatal checkups with Luke." Then slid my phone across the table with the clinic video open, watching the color drain right out of her face. She tried to whisper threats, tried to gaslight me, saying I was paranoid and did not understand, then finally snapped, "Yes, I have been seeing Luke. He gets me. You are boring and predictable." Like that somehow justified building a double life and planning to pass another man's child off as mine. I kept my voice steady and told her I had photos, emails, and video, and that if she lied one more time or tried to flip the story on me, everything would go straight to Luke's wife, Christine, and I would not lose a minute of sleep over it. Back at the house, when she accused me of being unreasonable and begged for another chance, I told her plain and simple she needed to pack her things, move out, and start her new life with Luke if that is what she wanted, because I was done being the backup plan and the cover story. By the next morning, Sarah was gone, her side of the closet mostly empty, and that same day I sent Christine an email with the photos, screenshots, and video attached. No dramatic speech, just the truth laid out in front of her. The fallout was fast. Christine replied saying she was filing for divorce, mutual friends later mentioned Luke's reputation at work taking a hit, and word eventually reached me that whatever romance they thought they had fizzled out under the weight of guilt and public embarrassment. As for me, I slowly rebuilt my life, picked up old hobbies, and sat many evenings on my back porch thinking about everything that had happened. And what I learned was this: when someone shows you they will betray you, believe them the first time. Protect your peace, and do not be afraid to walk away and let karma do its job. Because in the end, watching justice finally catch up to them is a lot quieter and a lot more satisfying than any shouting match could ever be.